Hello, hello. I'm Kads, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. Today, we're going to be talking about the somewhat shocking Cyber Week activities here that have just kicked off. So on day one, which is today, we have a couple of shard events. 10x for Mortu Macabre and Hefrak from Ancient and Sacred Shards. We also have today a 10x for Acrisia from Void Shards. Starting tomorrow and going on for 2 days, we have a guaranteed sacred event for Elva Autumnborn, and that will cost 20 sacreds. And lastly, we have, starting today, or it's already begun today, a champion training tournament where the top reward could be either Durandil or Bad Alcazar, depending on your level. And the way that typically works is if your level is 1 to 50, you'll be offered Durandil first in your group, and if your level is 51 to 100, you will be offered Bad Alcazar in your group. So let me know if that's any different, but that's typically how it is. So for those of you unfamiliar with some of these champions, I'm going to go through their kits, but if you are familiar, feel free to skip to the next section where I talk about my plans for this Cyber Week events. So kicking things off, we have Mortu Macabre, the Bane of Campaign and Doom Tower, and somewhat in Arena as well. Legendary HP-based champion. He has a very high base HP of 23k, a little bit of extra crit damage there, and a little bit of bonus resist. On the A1, he has a single target hitter that has an 85% chance of placing hero reduction, which is oddly based on attack. But he has, on the A2, attacks all enemies 2 times, 100% chance of placing block buffs, and it can't be resisted if you are under hero reduction. It's based on attack and HP, which is interesting. But we all love and hate him for this passive, where it's a 20%, but it feels like a 100% chance to unlock Peril for 1 turn when attacked, and it also fails his turn meter, which makes him go faster and also kill your champions. So Peril is this ability here. Attacks one enemy 2 times. It will ignore shield, block damage, and defense, and also you cannot be revived. It has a 0.2 multiplier times his HP, which is about on par with Magnar's double hit, but obviously Mortu has much higher base HP. We're ignoring shield, block damage, and defense, and blocking revive. So very, very devastating ability to go against, and a speed in all battles by 24% aura. Next, we have Hefrak, King of the Nukes. Legendary attack based, very high base attack, 1553, decent speed, so relatively quick because he's got the bonus crit damage as well. Low on the HP side, but if he does his job, that is irrelevant. On the A1, attacks one enemy, pretty simple, 20% damage from books though, and it places an extra hit if this is critical, which it should be because he's a nuker, so that's a double hitter. 2.2 multiplier there on each hit, so that can add up. This is his money ability here. He attacks all enemies, places an extra hit on targets with less than 50% HP after the first hit, and each hit will ignore 15% of the target's defense, 3-turn cooldown. This ability hits like a truck, and it has a 3.6 multiplier per hit. Now, he can be somewhat countered with all of the reaction gear in the game and Stone Skin as well, where you can't actually hit them twice because you didn't lower their HP enough. But if he's in a go second team, or you find some way to wait out reaction, he will just decimate teams into the ground unless he weak hits. And to set himself up, we have Megalomania here, where he places increased attack on himself, so you don't need an Arbiter to do it for him, and increased crit rate, so you can build him with 70% crit rate. And he grants an extra turn and then goes right into this smack. He also has a passive where if you kill any of his allies, it will automatically activate the nuke. And this just gets kind of weird. It's on a 4-turn cooldown. So if you build him with 70% crit rate, he might not crit if this is activated, so that's kind of a weird interaction there. And if you are smart with it and you CC him while you kill his teammates, then he'll try and do it, but he'll be stunned or slept or feared or whatever, and it won't actually go off. So there is a way to deal with that. Next, we have Acrisia, which is the queen of PvE. She has an interesting, let's start with the passive really, interesting kit here, where she'll take half damage effectively from AoE hits, so built-in Stalwart Plus, and if the target's max HP is more than double of her max HP, she'll deal damage based on enemy max HP instead of attack. She does have a decently high attack, just under 1500, relatively average HP pool, and she is attack based, but she does have the benefit of the bonus crit damage. On the A1, you have a chance of placing decreased defense, 60% chance, and she'll deal more damage with this skill every time it's used, up to 100% chance. She attacks all enemies twice, and she'll place a shield on herself for 2 turns, equal to 5% of her max HP for each critical hit. So that can actually be a massive shield if there's a lot of enemies out there, especially in Hydra. And attacks one enemy twice, 80% chance, 100% chance when booked, of stealing all of the turn meter before attacking, and it can't be resisted if they have a higher max HP, which would be some bosses. So Fire Knight and Spider come to mind there, where you can actually steal their turn meter. Crit rate in all battles aura. And yeah, very, very powerful champion. Enemy max HP effectively on all attacks for PvE, so she can absolutely wreck Clan Boss, Hydra, and every boss in the game, Doom Tower as well. So we also have the guaranteed champion here of Elva Autumnborn, who's a legendary support, good base HP, good base defense, really high speed, and a nice little boost in the resistance. On the A1, she places continuous heal for 2 turns on the ally with the lowest HP, books for damage. This is one of her money abilities, I would say. But full cleanse, 100% chance of a full cleanse, and she places block debuffs and increased speed on all allies for 2 turns. That's what you want. Great in an immunity set type build where she can't be debuffed and she cleanses all the stuff off your allies. You go faster and you're immune to any further debuffs. Really solid skill there, 3-turn cooldown. And she revives one ally with about half HP, half turn meter, with increased defense and increased attack on them for 1 turn. 3-turn cooldown there, a single target revive. She also has this passive here where she heals each ally by 10% of their max HP at the start of their turn, similar to kind of a Siphi type passive. And she also places a perfect veil on one ally with the lowest HP at the end of her turn, so she can shield your squishy nuker or someone else who's about to die, and hide them from single target attacks. Speed in all battle by 19%. So the champion training event offers Darandil here, epic attack based, and he is force affinity, which is not the best. Base attack is okay. Good would be like 1500 or 1450-ish plus. Really low base HP, so he's going to be hard to keep alive, and a little bit of bonus crit damage. On the A1, we have a 2-time hitter, 20% chance of placing a freeze, 30% if it's a critical hit, which it should be. He is a nuker, but meh. A2 here, attacks all enemies, ignores 15% of each target's defense, and it fills his turn meter by 10% on each critical hit. So if you do crit all enemies in the arena, for example, it's basically a half turn, so that's not bad. And that has a multiplier of 3.9. The A1 has a multiplier of 1.8 on each hit. And the A3, very hard-hitting single target ability here, which ignores half your defense and places Perfect Veil on himself. 4-turn cooldown and a 5.8 multiplier. Crit rate in all battles, aura by 15%. He can hit decently hard and ignore a bit of defense, really good in a Savage set, but he kind of suffers from the same problem as most other Force nukers of the Duchess on defense, where he's quite likely to weak hit and may not kill her or kill other spirit-based champions. And, Duchess will revive them and you might still lose the fight. So not as reliable for Force affinity nukers. Lastly, we have the ultimate support, Bad Al-Khazar. He has 20,000 HP, which is pretty good. Defense, 1100, pretty decent. Very fast, 102 speed. And a little bit of bonus accuracy and resistance. On the A1, attacks all enemies and heals this champion and all allies by 20% of the damage inflicted. That can really add up in terms of healing. But this is his money ability here. Malice removes all debuffs from all allies. So a full cleanse, and he places 2 continuous heals and two continuous heals on all allies, and 2 poison debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns. Very good in a reflex set, because he has only one ability here, and it will cool down this one, and so you can get more cleanses, more heals, and more poisons. He also has a passive here where he inflicts 20% more damage, or all allies inflict 20% more damage against targets under poison. And he also has a crit rate aura in all battles. So what's my plan and what should you do? So for us as free-to-play players, I always find it hard to pass up on a legendary tome that's relatively easy to obtain. So 4-day event, 2,000 points a day should get you 8,000 points for a free tome. As far as the Battle of Khazar is concerned, I'm not competing for it. As you can see, the top guy is already at 9,000 points in the first 8 hours. And that's going to be probably 20 to 30,000 by the end of it. So not worth that. Even though I would love to have Bad Owl on my account, I don't have him, but it's not worth that much effort and time. So I would say go for the Legendary Tome, get those, and work on your Legendary Champions that you do have. Bear in mind that this is also still going on with the Hoskirl Fusion that I am doing as well, so you're going to have to budget your resources properly. This is where you can kind of dip into your gem count, buy some energy with that to get both things done at the same time. You can also use your energy reserves if you have some to get that. They also gave out Cyber Monday deals where we get, I think, 500 energy total over 3 days. So you also have that bonus to help work on some things. So if you can pull all that together and get the Legendary Tome, it's probably for the best. It's worth using some gems to get Legendary Tomes in this game because they're very, very hard to obtain. For the 10x's going on, as usual, my plan is to skip them. I don't think they're worth it unless you are near Mercy, and I am not, so that's not a ton of value to pull shards to get them. They are decent champions, and Krizia is an amazing champion, but I probably wouldn't get her, and it'd be a lot of resources spent. However, there is a summon rush going on for this one day, so if you are pulling some sacreds because you want a Mortu for some reason, if you pulled 7, you could get a Legendary Tome, you could get some energy along the way. So there is some incentive if you were to pull, unlike other scenarios. For the guaranteed event, it's going to cost 20 sacreds for Elva. I personally don't want Elva. She would be solid. She's like a nice to have champion on my list, but not a need to have champion, so I'm not going to pull for her. 15 might have been tempting, but 20 is a bit too much for me. Typically it's been 15, and I think Sissia was offered for 12, so there's some precedent for lower amounts. And she's good, but I don't think she's good enough for me to blow 20% or 20 sacreds, so I'm not going to pull for that either. I wanted to also put some numbers to my reasoning here, so it's not just a decision made in a vacuum. After I pulled my shards for 2x Ancients, I reset my Mercy, so I'm 186 away from entering Mercy, so the odds of me getting anything along the way are horrendously slim, so that's reason one why it's not worth it. For Voids, I'm 63 shards away from Mercy, which again, that's a lot of Void, that's about half my stack. And for Krizia, that'd be great, but she doesn't feel worth 80-ish Void shards, in my opinion. I can do a lot of the content already without her. And Sacreds, I'm 6 away, and Sacreds are precious, so it's not worth it. And the Mercy system for Sacreds is way worse anyways. It takes about 50 Sacreds to guarantee a Legendary, so this is nowhere near that limit at all. But again, this is another reason why it's good to have some sort of Mercy tracker. This is the one I use. I prefer the spreadsheets, but RSL Helper, Raid Tool definitely has inbuilt one that tracks your Mercy as well, so you can kind of do the same assessment based on your situation and decide for yourself what's the appropriate course of action. But I would always say if you're not near Mercy, 10x's are not worth it. I also pulled up the 10x rate calculator here, and I did add in the new 4 legendaries from the recent patch. So we have a double 10x here for Ancients and Sacred Shards, which means that if you pull a legendary, you'd only have a 6% chance of getting that Hefrak that you might want, and you have a 12% chance of getting either Mortu or Hefrak from that legendary summon. For the Void Shards, it's a single 10x, which would mean that you'd have a 20% chance to pull a Krizia if you pull a legendary at all, which is, again, still decent, but depending on your Mercy, you may or may not get there, so proceed with caution. All right, so that's going to do it for this free-to-play review of the Cyber Week events. my recommendation again is to go for the Legendary Tome from the Champion Training event and skip out on the Champions offer, Darendil and Bad L. Typically those go to whales, and as free-to-play players here, we are not whales, so it's very, very hard to compete for champions in Champion Training events. For the shard events, I recommend, again, save your shards. Unless you're near Mercy and you have a strong desire for one of those champions, then by all means go for it. I leave that to you, but I recommend to save them. We have a fusion going on right now, although that doesn't require any shards. And we have a fusion coming up soon for Christmas, so you may want to have shards available for those. If you have 20 Sacreds to spare, Elva is a great champion, and you'll have a leg up for the new Faction Wars crypt when it opens. That's up to you. I'm not going to pull for her. I think she's great, but not good enough for me to spend my Sacred Shards on her. If you guys are pulling, let me know what you get in the comment section down below. And be sure to subscribe to the channel for more reviews like this. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.